really a few things, key things you need to know. And other than that, it's pretty easy to have a get together and have it be successful. And so we want to walk you through this and through some of the steps because we really do want you to walk away from this tonight feeling like this is something that you could go and do in your community. So let's just go over a few of the things that we're going to cover tonight. So first of all, we're going to talk about what the Troublemaker Get Together actually is and why you might want to host one. And then we're going to go over the steps for hosting one on your own, including, everything that you need to do before, during, and after your event. Then we'll talk a little bit about how you can facilitate a great conversation at your event, what to do after your get together, and finally, we'll share some best practices and wrap up with some question and answers. What is a Troublemaker Get Together? Well, in a nutshell, a Troublemaker Get Together is a gathering that could be in a home or it could be at another location to talk about the issues that matter to the women in your community. And I want to stress that these do not have to be in your home. They can actually occur a lot of different places, including places like parks or playgrounds. If you've got a mom's play group that wants to get together with their kids and just sit around outside while the kids play, a coffee shop, could be at a restaurant, it could be at a library, at a community center. Of course, it could be in your home, but really the possibilities are endless. It can be anywhere that you want to get a group of folks together. And I want to stress this, that the size of the group does not matter. You can have an effective, impactful get together with just 3 people, or you can have one that's really impactful with 20 people. It really is up to you. So we don't want folks to think that they've got to have a certain size group for it to be an effective gathering of people.
Thanks, Angela. Thanks so much for framing the conversation today. And so we really want to talk about what is the purpose in holding a troublemaker gathering? What would you talk about? Why would you want to gather folks in the first place? And so as you all are aware, troublemakers, we are really invested in the issues. We really want to make sure that we're educating folks about what's happening in our community and what impacts us day to day. And so you might ask, what are we going to talk about when we all gather, when we get together in the park, the coffee shop, the library, or even down to the bar? And so it might be that you want to support your friend running for office at any level. It could be from school board to state rep to commissioner. You might also want to fundraise for people. There have been a number of occasions where I've gone to folks' homes or even hotel lobbies, and we were fundraising for a cause, whether it be for the environment or for a candidate that might be running for partisan or nonpartisan office. That would be some of the things you might be talking about: their platform, the reason why they ran, what was their origin story or story of self that caused them to say, you know what, I'm going to throw my hat in the ring. It's really about making sure that we inform folks about the issues, what they can do to take action so that they can begin organizing, whether that's in an informal way through just coming to our events or joining a campaign, whether that be for an issue or a candidate, or it might be the nexus of an organization starting. You never know. People are going to meet one another, connect on the issues, and go from there. We're really just setting a foundation. And sometimes folks need to gather just to review civics. You might remember that earlier in the year, we did do a series on civics. Oftentimes, civics is not taught in schools anymore. And we as adults, women, and our allies need to know the nitty-gritty of what's happening at every level of government and what we can do to affect it. And then really and truly, some of the topics that you might want to pull from would be a part of our current Freedom to Parent campaign. There is something in our Freedom to Parent campaign for everyone, whether you want to fight back against extremism in schools, or protect education funding for social and emotional learning, or whether you want to fight back against anti-CRT, or even find out what CRT is, you can reference materials like our Freedom to Parent campaign to have a conversation too. But really and truly, you want to think about why are we gathering and what will we talk about? What does it accomplish? You want to say like, so we gather, so now what? You always want to have a goal in mind of why should we gather and what do we want to accomplish? We want to have a goal in mind because we are convening like-minded women and our allies and our community so that we can build community and find each other. As you all are aware, COVID has really changed our way of living over the last 3 years. And so it's so great to be in community, whether that be virtual or in person. And so that's what our community is about, is to find one another, help teach one another, each one teach one. And we also want to provide a space to have open, honest, transparent, authentic, and fact-based conversations as much as possible. And so we try to provide as many resources as we can through our website, but there are a number of organizations that can provide resources to help facilitate important discussions and conversations about a multitude of issues or candidates in your community. And overall, we really want to inspire women to mobilize for change and become troublemakers or advocates in their community. So often I've seen from folks gathering at troublemaker trainings that I've seen someone declare I was one time at a gathering and it was about public education funding. And there was an attendee who pledged to run for school board then, and is now actively running for school board in one of our states. And so you never know what can happen and how inspired someone may be to run for office or to testify or to petition. And so just know that this inspired conversation can lead to more action and be the beginning of collective advocacy. Because when, like Angela said, it doesn't have to be 50 people, it can be 3 people or 20 people. But when folks gather, they have collective buy-in, collective understanding, and are able to act collectively to advocate for whatever issue or candidate they're convening for. And something we want to pose to people as we progress through the conversation this evening. And Angela, I don't know if you want to throw this in the chat, but we do want to pose to participants is, what would you potentially like to see come out of hosting a get-together? What would you want to host a get-together for? What would be what you would want to accomplish? What would be your end goal of gathering women together around issues, having important conversations, and then ultimately mobilizing towards some sort of collective action or even individual action?
Someone actually put in the chat earlier, could we have a gathering to bring folks together to watch one of our troublemaker trainings? I think that's a great idea. Why not? You know, that's a perfect way to bring a group together and not only watch the training, but then talk about the training afterwards and see, you know, what everyone is feeling led to do. So yeah, we're starting to get some things in the chat here, but I'm going to move on and go ahead and start talking about who should be invited to the event. Well, first of all, it's your event, so it really is up to you who you should invite. And if you have, let's say you have a ready-made group, let's say I'm in a book club and I've got book club members and I want to bring them, you might decide that's the group I'm going to bring together to do a get together, and that's fine too. If you are looking to do something that is bigger and broader, and you are trying to come up with some different ideas about who you might want to invite and who might want to be together for a conversation about you know, political advocacy or candidates or school boards or whatever the issue is, here are a few ideas that you can tap into. Definitely your neighbors and your friends, anybody, a coworker, maybe somebody that you work with, or if you are a student and somebody's in class with you that you think would enjoy this. People who are part of other community groups with you, folks that you run into regularly. I mean, I always tell my hostesses, think about, the people. If your kids go to soccer, who are the moms you see at soccer practice? If you're at the gym, who are some of the women that you see there regularly, or preschool drop off, or any of these kind of regular places? Um, Definitely include some people who you feel likely agree with you, but maybe they've never talked about politics, or the two of you have never had any kind of political conversation. These are great people because they may be just waiting for a space where they can actually have those kinds of conversations. Um, Think about, the people that there's more recency, like the last 5 people you texted or you called, or maybe the last 5 people you sent a Facebook message to. And then finally, um, people who like or comment on your Facebook posts, especially if you've been posting about, anything, happening in your community, those are also likely people who would be interested in getting together and having more of a conversation about issues. One of the things that we're planning to send out to all of you so that you can feel totally prepared, equipped, and very confident in hosting your own get together. And we're calling it our Hostess Digital Toolkit. So we'll be sending you an email after this training that will include the components of this toolkit. And some of the things that are going to be in the toolkit include access to some downloadable items, like a sign-in sheet that you can use, some of Red, Wine, and Blue's flyers that you may want to use, especially if you are bringing women together around Freedom to Parent campaign or book banning or something along those lines. There will be a worksheet that you can print out if you want to use it at your event on how to map out your contacts. We're going to talk a little bit more about that in a few minutes. A checklist that we've put together, which really kind of walks you through the before, during, and after, everything to get ready for your event, as well as best practices. And then some links to some great content on our website and resources that could be very, very helpful to you. And as I mentioned, we'll send all of this out in an email after the training so that you will have access to everything you need.
We will be covering the before, the during, and the after of your event. All three are critical components for setting your event up for success. And so the before is, think about what we talked about a little earlier. Why are you meeting and what do you want to accomplish? I think that's first and foremost, so that way you can frame who you will invite, how you will structure your event, what you will talk about. And so the first thing you would do is make an invite list. As a part of that toolkit, you will get a mapping your contacts downloadable that you'll be able to use to say, well, who's in my school network? Who's in my mom's network? Who's in the auntie's network? Who's in my congregation network? And think about who you will invite. There are a number of platforms that you can use, whether that be Facebook, paperless posts, or like I like to receive invitations in the mail too. They just have a little sense of nostalgia that I can't get over, and I just love mail. But I would definitely anticipate, if you want to have 20 people at your event, more than likely you need to invite 100. Over invite to make sure that you can meet the goal for the number of people you want to gather. If you realize a week out that you've only gotten to 15 of those 20, keep on inviting people. Keep on following up with folks who haven't RSVP'd yet. Sometimes people may miss the invitation. It may go in their spam, whether that be via email, on social media, or in on their text messages. And feel free to reach out and call folks. People like to talk, and people like to talk about getting together and partying. So definitely utilize every opportunity to continue to invite folks and grow your RSVP list. Always review your checklist. There are going to be a number of items that you'll have to have in motion at the same time while you're thinking about having your event. And so you'll want to start gathering your supplies even while you're collecting RSVPs. You'll want to print things. You may want to give out things, whether that be something from the issue campaign or organizations you're highlighting or a campaign, you may have to coordinate with them about what they're bringing, also about what your refreshments might look like. And then also, if you're doing something that's RWB related or related to an issue or a candidate, you may want to wear paraphernalia from that organization. So definitely be sure to order that merch in advance. And typically with, t-shirts and buttons and stuff like that, it can be shipped anywhere from 5 to 15 business days. So definitely check the shipping policy for anywhere you would order merch from for an event you're hosting. And then I would say, keep it simple when you think about refreshments. I know oftentimes a lot of these events will happen during the lunch hour or for breakfast or right before dinner or during dinner time. And so you don't have to have a full-blown 5-course meal. Having some sort of sustenance for folks is really important. I would also note that if you are having an event with cocktails, make sure you also have a non-alcoholic beverage as well to offer your guests, because not everyone will want to partake in the libations you may be offering. But I would keep it simple with the snacks and just know that when folks come, they want to gather for a reason and they're there. You don't have to have all the things, but a few options will do. And then most importantly, continue to remind folks, just because someone RSVP'd 3 weeks before the event doesn't mean that they're going to make it there. So 2 weeks before the event, you may want to send them links to the candidate's website or the school board meeting notes, whatever you're meeting about. You want to continue to do event bill notifications to remind them that your event is happening in however many days. And then I also like to send a reminder on the day of. Many of you that are here this evening, you received an email reminder at 6 p.m. today, because I wanted to make sure you were here, whether you registered this morning or you registered a couple weeks ago. We definitely wanted to make sure that you got a notification and got the Zoom link to join us at least an hour and a half before. So if it means sending out text messages the day of or even an hour before, utilize that as well as a part of your event build and reminder strategy. So now you've got folks together. That's almost half the battle. We're always almost halfway through the battle, y'all. And so when you get folks together, of course, some of those things you've already gotten in motion in the before stage. So you've got your sign-in sheet. You've got maybe perhaps some greeters that are from the campaign or that are part of or closer friends to you that can greet your guests as they come in, depending on how many folks are supposed to come to the event. I always like to make sure that we buffer some time in for folks to mix and mingle, to get refreshments, to perhaps refresh themselves, and to just kind of de-stress and prepare for the event. So approximately 30 minutes at the beginning of your event, you would want to just let folks have some social time. But then around the 30-minute mark, you want to start gathering folks, whether that be in a circle in the yard in the picture, or whether it be you're about to get your food and you do it right after you get your appetizers or before you dive into something. You definitely want to gather people together and let them know that you're hosting it and why you're hosting it, and that will really frame the conversation for folks for the rest of the night. If you're in a gathering where the folks don't know each other, it's always great to do an icebreaker. That could be something as easy as, what's your favorite banned book? Or it could be something as dynamic as, what is your abortion story, if you are comfortable sharing it? And so you can do any number of icebreaker formats, but definitely model it as the host. You may, with one of your friends or someone from the campaign or from an organization who's deeply impacted about the issue you're gathering about, model it with them. So if it were me and Angela at an event, I'd say, Angela, what's your favorite banned book? And she would likely say,
The Absolutely True Diary of a Part-Time Indian.
Oh, good. That's a good one. And mine would be Love It. And so, and we may say why, and we may say something about the author, but you can frame it however you want to. You want to make sure you don't make the icebreaker too long, but also enough depth where people know a little something about one another, particularly if they've never met one another or never been in community about this particular issue. And then here comes the part that really is the meat, and I like to say potatoes, or the sweet potatoes and the lentils if you're a vegan. And so you really want to set the stage and provide some background about what the discussion will be about. You would have already done that with the invitation. You would have already done that in sort of your reminders and event bill notifications to your particular to the people who responded that they would attend or not attend. And so definitely want to make sure that you go back to that background information so that you can start facilitating the conversation and taking them through a structured but authentic way of having a conversation. So you could do that by asking questions like, why are you most concerned about abortion access in Ohio? Or it could be, why are you so invested in making sure that social and emotional learning budgets are funded in Virginia? It could be any number of things to get the conversation going. And oftentimes we want to make sure that people have time to process that question, because oftentimes they are deeply affected by the issue or connected to the campaign or candidate that we're presenting on that evening. And so definitely give them time to process that question before launching into the conversation. Oftentimes, we also want to make sure that we are aware that people learn differently. So some folks may want to see it written down. Some people might want to look at the pamphlet. Some people might want to discuss it. So people learn and process information differently. So I'd also be mindful of that if you pose questions to your event participants. Sometimes you might want to talk about misinformation or disinformation. We have a number of trainings with Jess McIntosh, you all have seen, about misinformation and disinformation. And so it may be that you all gather about that and watch, someone's suggestion in the chat, watch one of those trainings on mis and disinformation, because there is a way in which we may want to talk to our opponents that's more effective for us. And so you could perhaps talk about that. And then oftentimes with candidates or issue campaigns, there's someone who's a representative from that particular organization or entity who may want to do their stump speech and talk about why they want to talk to you as a particular neighbor or constituent or concerned advocate in the community. And so definitely be mindful of that, and also reference your run of show in your checklist that will come in your hostess toolkit tomorrow. And something I'd also really like to highlight is that we were having a get together in Michigan with some activists related to fighting back against gun violence. As you know, the gun violence prevention is prevalent in all of our communities. And unfortunately, it's been an ever-present issue in Michigan with so much happening there in recent times. And so one of the organizers made the event, there was not only like one call to action, but they were really able to craft a holistic call to action, and that they were able to learn about the issues, hear from folks most impacted by it, write postcards to legislators and folks concerned about the issue in the community. And then they also were able to provide contributions and items to those impacted by gun violence. And so think about what you have the capacity to take on. It could be, you would encourage someone to vote for somebody. It could be you enter someone into your contacts and text 5 people to vote, or it could be that you do all of those things and give to a certain cause impacted that would benefit from this gathering of folks taking more than just one action. So think about it holistically. And so last but not least, and going back to one of my earlier points about facilitating the conversation, not only allowing folks time to process on their own or in conversation by posing questions, but allow some time for folks to vent. We are here and mobilizing and organizing around these issues because our day-to-day is impacted by it. Our families, our schools, and future generations are impacted by these critical issues. And so give folks the floor to have time to vent. Now, obviously, do that within reason. You might want to time it out in your run of show so that folks don't get too carried away. But we definitely want folks to have the opportunity to show why they're fired up, to say they're mad at this for a reason. And so that way they can use some of that passion to fuel them, for them to take action and to inspire others who may or may not be at the Troublemaker Get Together. And
For some women, they've never really been brought together with some other people and had that space to really be able to kind of let their hair down and vent, or even talk very openly about some of these issues. And so I mean, that's one of the magical things, in my opinion, that happens at these events, is it does help to give voices to many women who maybe have been sitting on the sidelines and not actually had a group or a place where they felt like they could talk about these things they care about. So yeah, so the venting is just part of it. And again, just moderating that so that the whole evening isn't about, complaining, you can actually have a productive conversation. So just a few other things, that you might do at your get together. If it is relevant for your group and for the issue that you are discussing, you might want to explain what relational organizing is and how you can use it to do your advocacy. And for those who have been to trainings before with us, you understand relational organizing is basically friend-to-friend organizing. It's leaning into your relationships and having conversations about the issues that matter to you. And one of the great ways that you can facilitate that in a get-together is through this exercise we put together called Mapping Your Contacts, which is really just a way for everyone to kind of start brainstorming who are the people in their network, or who are the people that they have relationships with, that they can kind of make a list of and start being more intentional about reaching out to and having conversations about the issues that matter to them. So that might be appropriate in your group. You're also going to want to share any other resources that are relevant to your issue or to the reason that you have gathered folks together, whether these are red, white, and blue resources or resources that are coming from other places, including things like if it's a candidate event, that would be sharing some candidate information. And then finally, because these are things that you are doing out in your community with people locally, you always want to bring it back to local and think about, where do we go from here? Kind of what is next for us? You want to make sure that everyone leaves with some kind of call to action or understanding of what kind of that next big step is. And this could be, anything that is related to your issue. It could be just what is coming next for the group. But it's important to have something in mind that is going to be kind of that next thing. I was working with a group that was coming together for the very first time to start talking about their local school board and what was happening there. And so for them, the call to action was, when is our next meeting? And who is going to be the person that's going to keep all the email addresses and send out the information about the next meeting? So they had a very specific thing that they wanted to do before everyone parted ways. Sometimes your get together is the beginning of something. It is the beginning of maybe a group that is going to gather again. So one appropriate call to action could be to schedule the next time that you're going to meet up. And if you are going to do another meeting, the important thing is personally reaching out to the folks who came to your event with a phone call or a text to invite them to come back for the next meeting, and then ask them to bring a friend or two. I mean, that is one way that you can grow the group that you have just started from this first get together. But for some groups, for some get togethers rather, there isn't going to be necessarily a next get together, but there could be an event that you're going to attend. Maybe it is a rally. Maybe the call to action is related to volunteering for a candidate's campaign. Or it could be any number of things. Just make sure that when you're putting your run of show together and you think through, what is it I want everyone at the end of this to see as kind of that next step, you have got something in mind for them.
Connected to the call to action is like what happens after the get together. So to Angela's point, it may be that you all decide to get together in a certain date and time, and there's a designated next host, and that would be one of your after your get together to-dos. I always, regardless of you have another action or event or not, but would be to send a follow-up email to everyone who participated. It would be your call if you want to send it to everybody that you invited or everybody who attended. That would be up to the host on what approach you would do in your follow-up. Some of the topics I would include in that follow-up would be a recap of the event, perhaps show some pictures, maybe encourage folks to post their reactions or their impression of the event on Facebook. And then also make sure you reiterate the call to action and really demonstrate to folks that we said we're going to do this, we're going to show up to this rally on this day, or we're going to make sure that we invite 5 friends to the polls to make sure that we get out the vote in this particular district. Make sure that you underscore the importance of the call to action so everybody is aware of what happened and what is next. Even if there's nothing next, it could just be thank you and stay in touch and continue to be in community with me, and I'm available for a conversation. It just depends on the topic, the discussion, and what the call to action was for your event. And then something I would like to do, if you're really invested in making sure that you grow more interest in collective advocacy around this particular issue or support for a candidate or a particular topic, I would set up one-on-ones, reach out to the people who came and gathered. Oftentimes folks are much more open one-on-one and apt to talk about sensitive issues when it's one-on-one as opposed to large groups. And so be mindful that you may have a few folks who want to have a more prolonged and deeper conversation about whatever it was you were gathering about, or even other topics. And then something we would like to know is feel free to let us know how it went. And we have SWEEP, which we have over 250,000 women in, and we have women having get-togethers in a variety of ways across the United States. So no matter if you're gathering in a coffee shop, at the brewery, or even at your congregation, feel free to post in our national Facebook group or in your state group if you have a SWEEP state group in your community. And then also, we want you to celebrate your success. Feel free to email us at volunteer@redwine.blue, or even reach out to myself or Angela and let us know how it went if you had a troublemaker get together. You don't have to call it a troublemaker get together. It could be Ray's tennis friends for social and emotional learning happy hour. It can be any number of things. It doesn't have to be a troublemaker get together. We really want to encourage people, no matter where they are in life, no matter what issues you care about, that you can curate an event that you're comfortable having and that you're willing to facilitate and be in community with folks so that you all can find common ground, learn from one another, and build community. And if there's any way that we can assist you with that, by all means, reach out. We want to provide you with a few tips to consider, and we will include this in the hostess toolkit as well. We'll have a best practices and checklist sheet that can be front and back that you can print, or you can print it however you want. But we definitely want folks to be mindful of a few best practices. There's a saying that it's called KISS. Keep it simple, stupid. And I don't think anybody's stupid, but we just want to keep it simple because we don't want it to be too complicated. It already is a lot to commit to putting on an event, no matter the size, whether you're gathering 3 people, 30, or 300 people, it's a commitment. And so we want you to take on tasks that you're comfortable with and keep it as casual as possible. It doesn't have to be a 5-star dinner, but maybe you do have a gathering one day that's a 5-star dinner. Whatever you're comfortable doing is what we encourage you to do. We also want you to know that if you're having it at your house, you don't have to have Mary Maids come in and do the baseboards before you have it. It can be in the backyard. It can be on your front porch. It can be in your front yard. It can be a walking group. I've done gatherings where we meet up in the front of my house. I give out some donuts and muffins and water, and we walk around the neighborhood and go to, I live in a community with ponds, and go gather at the pond and watch the ducks. You don't have to worry about your house being in pristine condition to have an event. A clean house is not a prerequisite to take action and in your community. And something that is really important that we want to underscore and emphasize is that you want to prepare yourself to facilitate conversations with folks of all identity and all personalities and all walks of life. We want to be able to meet people where they are, the number one rule of organizing. And so be prepared that everybody won't have the same view, or everyone might not have the same lived experience, but being prepared to facilitate conversations is a life skill that goes beyond gathering troublemakers, but it's something that'll be hugely impactful for you in any facet or relationship in your life. So facilitating conversations is key to that. And also realizing that everybody's not outgoing. I myself, as extroverted as I may seem, I'm kind of an ambivert. So I like to be extroverted, but then I need my introverted time to charge up so I can be extroverted. So be mindful that just because someone's not saying something doesn't mean they're not engaged. It may mean that they process or understand information differently, or they just may be introverted and like to be less vocal in big groups of people. And then make more best practices on your checklist. If you come across something that has really worked for you for your troublemaker gatherings, get-togethers, wind downs, whatever it is, send them our way. The more best practices that we can share in our community, the better. We really want to make sure that we provide you all the most robust list of best practices possible, and add things to your checklist. You don't have to do all the things on our checklist. It's a suggestion, but feel free to send us any that we should consider adding to ours. That we'll be able to distribute to folks as we continue to have these trainings.
Sometimes you get into a group and there are a few people that monopolize a lot of the conversation. They've got a lot of stuff to say, and it's very easy. They're maybe very extroverted, and it's very easy for them to be jumping in. And I am always trying to be very aware of who is not talking. And again, as I said earlier, I want to make sure that we are always making space for people who maybe have never had that opportunity, maybe never even had anybody ask them what they thought about this particular issue. So sometimes what I would do at events is, if I would see somebody who seemed very engaged, but they were not saying anything, I would sometimes just reach out to them directly to say, Sarah, do you have anything, that you'd like to add or share? And like 9 times out of 10, that person had been giving so much thought to all the conversation, but had never said anything, and came out with the most profound statements. After those experiences, I have become always much more aware of who is not talking, and making sure that all the talkers in the group haven't made it so that the ones that don't talk as easily don't feel like they get a chance to jump in. So that was just a little bit of advice from my experience.
We're at the questions portion, and we've had a really lively chat. Thank you all so much for your contributions, your affirmations, your tips, your best practices, your have you thought about this or that. And so I'm gonna go through the chat a bit. Yes, you can totally have events at wine bars. Yes, use social media. I would say
And breweries.
yes, and breweries or coffee. It depends. Whatever is folks, whatever they like. I've seen folks do chai lattes before chai and chats. I've seen people do ballet and ballads. They went to a bar class and did, bar is not ballet per se, but it's bar, BARRE, and ballads because they were getting ready for GOTV. So there's any number of places that you can gather to have them. Yes, you can gather to have troublemaker trainings. We have them available on YouTube. Not all of our trainings or salons or AMAs are available on YouTube. Sometimes our speakers don't want them for mass distribution, but the majority of the time, whether it's our public events, our podcasts, our live events, those are all events that you all can view together. You don't have to just view one. You can do one. You can do several.
Yeah, our YouTube channel is a treasure trove of resources. And if you go to the playlist, you can find videos grouped by like issue or topic, which is great, which is just a great way to find great content.
What is considered the best time of day to have gatherings is something I've seen. One person said I had them on a weeknight and a Sunday afternoon. Seemed like Sunday was the best time. And Angela, looks like you answered that. It depends on who you're inviting to. If it's folks who do spend they may spend time in their congregation on Friday, Saturday, or Sunday. You might want to be mindful of that. You might want to be mindful if it's an event during the week, during playoff season or something. You never know. So just being mindful of local, state, and even like events that happen in popular culture is something I think about too in scheduling your event.
Ray, we did have a question that just came in where someone said they were worried about getting people to the meeting. How do I get them enticed to come?
Well, I think there's a variety of things. I mean, you could have one-on-ones with folks before having an event. You don't have to wait until after having an event to host an event. And so oftentimes a lot of our events come out of having one-on-ones before we even think about the idea of the topic for the event. And so that would be one incentive, is really finding out what issues they're most excited about. I would also say sometimes people like swag. I have gone to an event or two because there was a silent auction, or I was going to have a t-shirt or a book giveaway. So think about enticing folks that way. I remember one time I went to an event and I won golf lessons, and I really wanted to learn how to play golf that part of my life. And so I won golf lessons by having a raffle. I also do know that if you do have raffles, depending on if they're political in nature or not, you might have to have a permit. I know that's something that happens in Illinois, might be just specific to where I was, but thinking about any sort of number of giveaways, whether that be merchandise or just the issues, or there might be a big guest. Maybe it might be that you're connected to someone in your community who's a local artist or artisan that folks might care about. And so you could always have that kind of draw as well. What would be your additions, Angela?
Yeah, I mean, I think when it comes to pulling people together, you are probably the best person to kind of know who may care about whatever the reason is or the issue is, or whatever it is you're trying to accomplish. I mean, you're going to know who you maybe should be inviting to that. And I think if you are concerned about people being hesitant to come, then the more personal you make the invitation, the better. So maybe picking up the phone and calling the person instead of just sending an email where they're going to maybe kind of try to leave it up to interpretation for what you mean and what the event is about, but actually calling them and talking to them about it and kind of seeing if somebody has any hesitancy, if you can kind of figure out what that is and maybe address it on the front end. Because sometimes someone may have this sort of preconceived notion about what this get together is going to be like. And maybe they don't have the right idea. So part of it, I think the personalization of it will help with that.
Absolutely. And I think that leads also to another concern or question that was raised in the chat about alternatives for sharing information instead of having something on Facebook. You could always use private platforms like Evite, or I used what is it called? It used kind of like tokens, but it's like you use your own Rolodex basically to send it, and it's personal invitations that can be texted or emailed to people. I've also used Signal and WhatsApp
Hmm.
to talk with folks, and those are private conversations and communities you can build there outside of Facebook. I personally aren't in a whole lot of Facebook groups, so most of my organizing happens offline and in group chats. And so you could also, there's a number of apps that have safe and encrypted group chats as well. And I'd also be mindful of, if you are doing something online, maybe it's you only do it in the private group, or maybe you only do it by giving folks physical invitations as opposed to having it as a public event on Facebook. Definitely keep your personal and digital safety top of mind when organizing any event, regardless of the brevity of the topic.
Right. And Ray, Julie has put a couple things in that I think are very helpful points too. I mean, first of all, and maybe Ray, we had so much to go over, we didn't stress this enough, but you want to make this event fun. It needs
Yeah.
to be fun. It's got to be something fun. Julie talks about FOMO, fear of missing out. You want to make it something that people are not going to want to miss out on coming to. And then she suggested, let them bring a friend so that they don't feel so alone, which I think is a great idea. I mean, anything I do, I am always telling people, bring a friend along who you think would also be interested in this, or bring a friend who is like-minded. And I mean, just like going to school board meetings, if you're not going by yourself, if you have a buddy to go with you, it just makes it so much easier. It can be the same coming to a gathering like this, especially if you're worried that this is a group that maybe where people haven't had these kind of conversations before. So I think that's great advice.
Yeah, and I think the one last thing that I would highlight is I had someone message me and said, well, can men come to these events? And it depends on who your audience is and what you are trying to accomplish. This is your event
Right.
at your home or your local venue. I've been to fundraisers. I actually have a friend on the board of Men for Choice in Illinois, and it's literally dozens of men together supporting reproductive freedom and abortion rights and choice. And so it depends on what kind of gathering you're having and what you want to accomplish and what kind of conversation you want to curate for that event. So your guest list is your guest list, and
Right.
you as the host have the full autonomy to decide who can attend and who doesn't. We don't want to prescribe to you of how you're supposed to have fun or turn up with your network. We want to make sure that it's fun, it's engaging, and that you all can build community and continue to build community and work towards affecting change of some sort.
It sounds very much from the chat, Ray, that we have got some women that are going to be getting started planning some get-togethers. So we are excited to get the feedback on that. Please do let us know how these things go. We so enjoy getting feedback from all of you all and celebrating your successes. So make sure that you definitely send that information back to Ray or I.
And without further ado, thank you so much, Angela. Thanks to all of you. You all have a great rest of your evening, and we'll see y'all on the internet next time.